Senior Living Today, brought to you by these fine sponsors: Wires Inc. and First Class Realty Triangle East.
Hello everyone, and welcome again to Senior Living Today. We've got a great show for you this evening, but before we get started, something we always say at Statewide: we can't thank you folks enough, whether it's WHIG, Statewide, but you signing on and watching the program and learning so many different things as far as Senior Living Today. And tonight we're bringing you a whole different aspect, whether it be from commercial, real estate, from your business entity. All of this will be explained, and it's no reason to hold off. Let's go ahead and get into it since we only have 30 minutes. Cheryl?
Yeah. One thing I'd like to do first of all is just thank our sponsors.
Oh, absolutely.
For putting us on the air this evening. First Class Real Estate Triangle East, that's Brett Hill and his group. Also Brian West with Wires Inc. And I love those guys because I have an $800 pickup truck. I got a $15,000 bed liner in it. So
They do anything you want.
They do anything you want. Right. They do great work. But this evening we have a real great situation here. Jeremy Crawford, who works with Statewide Insurers Group as our senior business advisor, is going to talk a little bit about the services that he offers working through Statewide and how it really affects, business owners and commercial real estate owners.
Correct, right.
Yeah, okay, great. You and I have had this conversation off screen a little bit, and so I'll use a couple of words that maybe they'll be more clear just shortly. You and I talked about cost remediation.
Right.
And just
take it away.
Carry into it, yeah.
All right. Well, what we're going to try to do tonight is talk about the consultancy side of Statewide Insurers Group. And I'm going to try to do my best to keep it broken down into little bits and pieces, because we understand very clearly that the insurance industry is confusing to some, and no doubt the tax laws and tax programs are even more so.
Absolutely.
So we'll do it a little bit at a time. To address your question, Cheryl, cost remediation is basically a name given to the processes of just helping businesses solve cost-related problems, whether that's the taxes they pay or the expenses that they have to cover, like credit card vendors. So in a nutshell, that's what we do as cost remediation.
Okay. Specialized, you're talking about tax incentives.
Right.
And I know you and I have talked a little bit about employer tax incentives, if you expand on that a little bit.
Sure. So to add some depth to the cost remediation services, we look at three basic lanes: specialized tax incentives, expense reduction or cost control, and then finally financial services. The specialized tax lane involves all kinds of programs that are at the state, federal, and local level. Essentially, if you have a tax burden, you're a for-profit industry, and you have a tax burden or you pay taxes in some capacity, then it's likely that you're eligible for many of the programs that the IRS has out there or that the state might have. And so what we do is we connect with area business owners and area commercial property owners to find lanes where they might capture some savings, get some money back through tax credits. Some of the big ones that I would like to highlight are cost segregation studies. I know that's a complicated name, and for most people they don't have an understanding about what it really means. But cost segregation is a service that we do where we just properly depreciate the assets in your business. Most people know that you can depreciate the building, but they don't understand that you can depreciate the personal property, like the tables and the lighting and the dentist chair.
Right.
So we use cost segregation studies to just properly depreciate the assets according to their correct timelines. And what it's been doing for us is opening up a ton of money when a business owner is able to accelerate the value from that property and collect it sooner instead of waiting for 39 and a half years.
So that's the number, 39 and a half years?
Yes, that's one of the numbers related to real estate depreciation.
Interesting.
Those who may have some background on that, personal property depreciates much faster. It's 5, 7, or 15 years. And so our team at the home office is just, their entire focus for cost segregation is just to look at every bit of your asset and properly depreciate it according to the correct timeline. And it's been opening up a huge opportunity for savings. That's just one area of specialized taxes.
Right. Now, you mentioned for-profit.
For-profit, yes.
Does that knock out the nonprofits we have in this area? Are there things you can do for them? Or?
No, it's a great question. And a lot of nonprofits are just not entitled to some of the tax incentive programs because essentially they do not have the tax burden or don't have a source of revenue that is taxed according to the IRS. However, that doesn't mean they're completely out of the mix. That doesn't mean there's nothing available for them. We actually have one opportunity that's really been working great for universities, churches, other nonprofits that we have in the area, where we work with that agency and their alumni department or their donations and giving department. And what we do is we connect with their business owners that are alumni or board members or just a part of the group. And when we have been returning savings to their business, it actually frees up more opportunity for that person to donate more or to easily give what they would have already given. So nonprofits aren't completely out of the mix, but their lane is a bit more narrow on what they have available to them. Now, I will add one more piece if I can.
Yeah.
We have a couple of nonprofits in the area that help place people into employment with local employers. And so we help them share hiring incentives with their receiving company, their client. And as you know, most nonprofits also hire people. They have true W-2 employees. So that is still one lane where they can collect on the hiring incentive or the employer incentive. But cost segregation and some of the other stuff is just out of their lane. I'm not getting too deep, am I, on some of this?
No. Now, you were talking about the hiring incentives. What type of potential money is there to help the employer?
Good question. This is getting a little deeper onto the specialized tax incentive, and it's a great question. Right now, there are two programs that deal with your staff, those that you want to hire or those that you currently have on your team. If you're looking at a candidate and you're wanting to see if there's a tax credit available to your business, you're going to be looking at mostly the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, the WOTC, or what's known as WOTC. WOTC is an IRS program where they give business owners from $1,200 to $9,600 for each qualified new hire that they bring onto their company. If you think about it this way, the program started as a focus on veterans. So like myself, I would qualify, the company would qualify for $9,600 if they were to hire me. Even the bare bones basic credit is $1,200.
Right.
And the way that works is if you hire the person, and we help you find out if they're qualified for a credit before you even bring them on. They work the minimum hours that they have to work depending on what they do. And once they've reached their milestone, the company just comes back to us and says, hey, Mr. Smith has been here X amount of hours. Can I get my credit for that? And we help them finish off the process of filing with the state workforce agency to receive the credit. The other side of that coin is those you currently have. And this is where there's a huge amount of money right now. As you may know, President Biden signed in ARPA a few months back, the American Rescue Plan Act. And what ARPA does is it adds a large pot of money available to business owners for their current W-2 employee. Requires a little bit of backstory, and there are some qualification requirements to meet. But for those businesses that have W-2 employees and they meet the requirements, they may be entitled to $33,000 per W-2 employee as a tax credit. I mean, if you have 3 people, that's almost $100,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it adds up very quickly. We have one client here in the Rocky Mountain area that has 15 on his staff, and his current ERC project, if you will, is almost $500,000.
Wow.
And he only has 15 people. And so ERC, Employee Retention Credit, and WOTC, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, have really been helping us pull a lot of money back into local businesses.
That's great.
So it goes to show, just like with the seniors we're looking at now, guys, no matter, as you're looking at what what Jeremy's explaining tonight, the question Cheryl is asking, you're sitting on that couch saying possibly, well, you know, this really doesn't apply to me. That's the neat thing about senior living today. It brings you all aspects of senior living. And tonight was something, why? I think everybody knows taxes are due. I hate to even hit on that bell, guys, but taxes are due, I think, the 15th of this month. It was an extension. So that's why we felt like tonight would be a good little bump for our business owners. As Jeremy said, Cheryl, commercial property owners. it's just a point you need to be considering, and you want to reach out to Statewide and speak to Jeremy Crawford as well as Cheryl Braswell. And we're right here locally, 880 Country Club Road. Cheryl, what else do you have there that, because we're getting ready to go to break?
Yeah,
but
what's a good website for you, Jeremy?
Well, you can see my contact information on the bottom of the screen with my email and my telephone number. It's 252-999-0097. Or you can find me at Jeremy@cash-flow solutions. There's a dash in between the cash and the flow. And of course, the website is just as similar to my email. It's www.cash-flowsolutions.com. If you were to start at any of those 3 points of contact, we could get going on finding out more about your business and seeing which one of those specialized tax incentives might qualify.
Okay. You talked a little bit, well, talking about the tax situation. This all sounds CPA-ish to me.
It does. It does.
Yeah, this sounds like something you would go to your CPA and say, hey, can you do so-and-so for me?
Sure. And we get that a lot. The common question is, I think my CPA does that. And you know, for some aspects of what we do under the entire umbrella of Stride Solutions, they're correct. CPAs that we come across, they understand cost segregation, and they are even doing some payroll and bookkeeping, and they might understand hiring and employer incentives. The problem that we're finding for most CPAs is that about 40% of the year is tax time, like right now. So they're spent doing returns, amendments, individual returns. So the bulk of their year is spent very busy and not doing anything else that involves advising. The other half of the year, they're trying to do continuing education. They're doing payroll. They're doing bookkeeping, and they do advice for some of their business owner clients. But the few CPAs we interact with have a book of business of over 2,000 clients, and they can't keep up with every one of them. So what we do is we bring the services to the business owner, and we work with their CPA to go after the largest possible incentives or cost reductions. We're not trying to replace any providers. Matter of fact, we want communication with that CPA, that provider, early on in the process, because we know that your CPA is the one that's filing your tax return. And we're just doing the legwork and the number crunching on our dime to try to provide the largest possible return we can.
Who stands behind Jeremy Crawford?
Who stands behind Jeremy Crawford? Well, since we have a partnership with Stride Solutions, all of the number crunching, all of the liability, the risk, and the guarantee that comes with what we do is carried by Stride Solutions. If you guys take a moment and look them up on the internet, they are the nation's leading stimulus consulting firm. And through their sister company, which is Growth Management Group, that team is really a powerhouse at focusing on one key area of what your business might need and working it all the way to the ground, while the other team focuses on another area. So instead of having your CPA trying to do this, we have a team looking in on you and making everything we can happen for you. And so Stride is the backbone and the hard work of the operation.
it just seems like this is brand new. How long has it been around?
Well, Stride's been around for about 17 years. While we recently brought it in under the statewide umbrella, they have been doing this for 17 years. They have a lot of money invested into the statistics and the mathematics that go into finding the best possible solution. And the home office team will tell you that it really does take a collection of talent to bring together what they do.
Right.
And they've learned through a lot of hiccups and challenges, and they've really fine-tuned their product to what they deliver today. But 17 years in the mix, and they have given back just a bit over $1 billion over that time
Outstanding.
to business owners. I might be off on that a little bit, but I know it's right around the $1 billion mark right now.
So if you're sitting on, and we're getting ready to go to break, so you know usually when I chime in, something's getting ready to happen, because these are the two brains of the organization. As you're looking at us on TV tonight, what you need to be sitting on your couch thinking, you know, Mr. Crawford's telling me something about my business. Or you may know someone in church that has a business, or a CPA. Jeremy, is the simplest way here to just, I don't know, simplify it, Joey, to pick up the phone and call Jeremy Crawford and ask that question that maybe you're unsure of?
That's the easiest way. Just pick up the phone and give us a call, and after the break we can touch on a little bit more about the process that is involved once we meet. But the call gets it started, it really does.
Outstanding. Well, we're going to be right back after a short break. It's funny how 30 minutes just flies by. I hope you're taking some notes. You notice all the various characters that we have on Senior Living Today, and each one of them touch one aspect of your life. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll be right back after this break. See you then.
Senior Living Today, brought to you by these fine sponsors: Wires Inc. and First Class Realty Triangle East.
Welcome back. I told you it was a short break, and we're going to jump right back into it for the sake of time. We left you with Jeremy was going to explain just a couple of the steps, because sitting on that couch, it can get confusing. Jeremy, what are the steps that we actually lead into to kind of find out if we have a benefit?
Great question. What we do is, it's called a survey. The basic process to get things going is that once we hear from a business owner that they want to learn more or find out what they qualify for, we can meet with them face-to-face in an office, at a local social place, or we can do the entire meeting virtually. But the purpose of the survey is to go through 7 to 11 questions that are targeted to the person's industry, their position in the business, and where they're located, because that's what it has to do with a lot of the tax incentive programs. When we know those 3 bits of information and the answers to these 7 to 11 questions, we have a pretty good roadmap in front of us about where to look for savings. For example, Joey mentioned when we started that what we do is a benefit to business owners and commercial property owners. Well, if you own your commercial property and we know what you spent for it and how long you've had it, we can kind of map out whether or not we can look at a cost segregation study. If we know you're hiring, we can talk about where you might see some cash coming back to you through hiring incentives. But 7 to 11 questions, generally 10 to 15 minutes to kind of lay that path out in front of us, and we can get started towards figuring out what they qualify for.
Did you say this started with the vets? Can you take just a second down that road and explain, in case we do have senior vets out there, about how this started with?
It's a pretty honest question, because I did say vets, but Stride and GMG, or Growth Management Group, did not start with a focus on veterans. I was trying to convey that the WOTC, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, started way back in 1934 as a focus on helping military veterans gain employment after coming back from deployments and from the war. And it grew. But even today, WOTC's primary focus and its largest credits are towards the veterans, like myself.
That's great news.
Okay. And is there a timeline or particular criteria that that vet has to meet to be considered for this benefit, or?
Well, no, there's no specific timeline that really applies to them. And actually the timeline is more specific to the business owner. If we're working with a client and we know they're going to hire, if you're going to qualify for WOTC, you've got to start the paperwork before they become an employee. You cannot have them hired. So say, for example, we want to bring somebody on next Wednesday. Well, we would have that client submit the candidate info to our portal. We'd go through the process of giving them an estimate on the credit. Once the employee is then hired and works their minimum hours, then we can finish the paperwork and pass back a detailed report giving the exact credit that they qualify for. But WOTC is one that if you don't have it signed and in place before the person starts, the credit's voided already. So there really is no timeline for the candidate. It applies more to the business owner getting it in place at the right time.
And that alone, when you meet with the potential client, commercial property, landowner, whoever it may be, business owner, you would lay that out for him?
Absolutely. We just did this with one of our local nonprofits. We know they hire about 20 people a year in the summer for seasonal. and then they hire about 7 to 10 for full-time year-round. Well, we got their portal put in place just last week, and so they're dumping all of the candidates in there for the summer, and we're starting to examine them. By the time they get done working their seasonal work in August or September, they've met their requirements, we kick back the credit. Here's the beautiful thing when it comes to some of these seasonal workers or some of the staffing agencies. If you have seasonal worker and you bring them on and they qualify for a credit in 2021, there are some possibilities that when they return for you in 2022, that the credit might be available for you again, provided WOTC hasn't changed or the requirements haven't changed, and that the position has been terminated and they've come back. Now, that doesn't mean everybody will, but there's a very good chance that you could repeat them through the seasonal cycle over and over again. What I really love from my staffing agency people is that some of the staffing agencies require their placements to work 400 hours or more for them before they're released to go work for the receiving company. Well, 400 hours is the magical hour for WOTC. So when the staffing agency brings on and places 50 people this month that qualify for a credit, they hit their 400 hours, the staffing agency collects the credit, and when they pass them on to the receiving company, they're also eligible to collect the same credit. It can be done by more than one company in more than 1 year. And so we've really had an opportunity to take the staffing agencies and put a bunch of credit back into their pocket and then helped them gain a competitive advantage over other placement agencies that don't use the credit, that don't get their candidates properly qualified.
Okay. You talk about working with your CPA that you may have in place right now. Are you trying to suggest to them other vendors that they may want to do business with, or replacing what they're doing right now?
No, not at all. We really are not trying to take away a provider that the business owner has. If you're happy with them, good, great, keep them, because we want to work with them. If they are a CPA and have been for 5 or 10 or 20 years, who knows you better than they do? And so they have all the documentation, they have the knowledge, and they are really the best source. Because at the end of the day, our work, we're not asking you to accept our work as fact. We're showing it to your provider, and we're asking you to trust the person you already work with, because they're the ones doing the paperwork. And we haven't even gotten into the expense reduction side, but I believe that's coming up, and maybe we'll touch on it then, but I'll add right now is, if you have a vendor and we're auditing your vendor, we're not trying to replace them. Whether it's your workers' comp insurance or your credit card or your shipping vendor, keep them. We're just trying to help you keep them honest. Because a lot of time the overcharges aren't purposeful. It's accidental, it's erroneous, it's duplicated entries. And when we go in there and dig them up and find them, we show the vendor what they have overcharged, and they're the ones giving the business owner money back, not us. So,
and I have seen that firsthand at Statewide, working with a couple of workers' comp situations where we questioned. I mean, we were not doing this program. We just we did not agree with the rating that they had given to the workers' comp program, and we ended up getting it changed for the client. And saved the money. So you're doing a very much more detailed review like that. Okay.
Right. And if I could, I'll just touch on the expense reduction a little bit more. Okay. So under that expense reduction, it has nothing to do with taxes. Whether or not you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, there's no IRS involved in this whatsoever to get you into the process of looking at your vendors. But if you have a credit card vendor, shipping, waste and recycling, energy, or workers' comp insurance vendor, we have the resources and the tools to go in there and look at how they bill, look at whether or not it's efficient compared to the rest of the industry you're in, and we try to find opportunities for overcharges and just corrections in the billing. And what we're finding is that if a company takes in credit card transactions to the tune of, let's say, $300,000 a year, whether it's swiped or manually put in, that we're ended up giving back about $3,000 to $4,000 in overcharges just from those small amount of money. Obviously, we have some clients that are taking in $500,000 or $1 million in revenue, and their overcharges are in the $6,000 to $7,000 range.
Wow.
So you definitely got to give us an opportunity to look at it, because $70 billion last year was overcharges in the credit card industry.
Wow.
$70 billion.
Now take a second. You're sitting on the couch. I got to interrupt. Take a second.
Yep.
And that number was what?
$70 billion.
That's with a B.
With a
Bravo.
B.
Keep in mind what we do at Statewide. Senior Living Today. Next week, as we're sitting here about to close, to show you another variety of where we're going. Tonight, we talked in depth of your wallet. How do we put money back in? And Jeremy, I think you said commercial property, employers.
Right.
Cheryl had some great questions on this aspect. Now next week, on a totally different venue, Nash County Sheriff's Department, Brandon, let's see, Chief Deputy, I think that's correct.
there we go.
Brandon Medina.
Correct.
He's going to be talking to our seniors about safety around your home, your workplace, and just your environment as you're out traveling, shopping, and what have you. So notice the variety of shows that you're getting right here on Senior Living Today. Now, Jeremy, can you give us just because I know we're about out of time, just a quick close on how you, our audience, can go on, is it YouTube, our website, how they can see some of the shows in case they missed us here? Absolutely.
Every one of the shows we have for Senior Living Today are on our website. And if you go to www.medicarestatewide.org and just scroll down just a little bit below the footer, you'll see a whole string, a bunch of thumbnails for all the videos from Caroline's first show to today. It'll be up there later this week. And then you can find all of our shows and revisit anything we've talked about. Additionally, WHIG TV's YouTube channel has it as well.
Yes.
Great information. Oh my gosh. Cheryl?
Just one last point. If you have any ideas you would like to pass on to us for someone you would like to see on the show,
Absolutely.
Please.
Please give us a call because we're trying to build a list of topics that are pertinent to the senior market out here and get you the information that you need.
And we want to hear from you. So from Jeremy Crawford, myself, Cheryl Braswell, the whole team at Statewide representing Senior Living Today, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. We look forward to hearing from you. Make sure you give Jeremy Crawford a call on the intel that you received this evening. We thank you again for tuning in. God bless and have a good evening.
Have a good night.
Senior Living Today, brought to you by these fine sponsors: Wires Inc. and First Class Realty Triangle East.